All right, so we are very excited to have a special guest here for our feature video for our 2020 Student Symposium on the Environment, Dr. David Orr. So, David, for those people who don't know you very well, can you give us a little bit about your background and your connection to Westminster College?
Well, sure. Helen, first of all, nice to be with you and back at Westminster in even virtual form. My dad became president of Westminster in 1949, and I was just a little tot at the time. And so my first memories of Westminster were the parade that the college held for him down Main Street, down Market Street into Wilmington in 1949 as we came into town. Um, Lived in New Wilmington until 1966. Well, after graduate school, after graduating from Westminster in 1965, went to Michigan State and then University of Pennsylvania. So memories of the New Wilmington are very strong.
You've been involved in several environmental projects in your history. You've written several books. Most recently, you're involved in a project that you call Democracy Unchained. Do you want to talk a little bit about that and what you view as the connection between environmental issues and politics?
Just as I was retiring from Oberlin, my last official act here was to organize a conference on the state of American democracy. And it was looking back at how did we get to the election of 2016. The uh, the goal was not to be political in some sense, but rather more analytical. But for 3 days, we started with Jane Mayer from New Yorker and Tim Egan from New York Times, and 3 days of really headline speakers, and closed with Reverend William Barber on the evening of the third day. And it was a great look at how we got there, and several conclusions came about that. None of this was new. The election of 2016, Donald Trump was an anomaly in many ways, but it wasn't new. And the roots of the election and our some of our worries and some of our successes go way back on how we organized our political affairs. And then the project, second phase of the project was organizing a book called Democracy Unchained. I think there's an added element of urgency in that the future is going to be very different than the past, all the way back to the beginnings of civilization. Climate change is on us. This isn't a future prediction. It is now happening. California wildfires and rising sea levels and larger storms, all the data are in. This is no longer a legitimate subject for debate. There'll always be questions around the margins, but like a picture, the pixels get more and more clear and more dense. And so as the science has progressed over the past half century, our awareness is that this is a civilizational crisis, and it's not something that we can stop here in the United States or in any country. This is a worldwide thing. And so much of the impetus for the State of American Democracy project is to reconsider how do we build a democracy, quite literally for the first time, that is inclusive, fair, transparent, accountable. And that there are a lot of things that have to happen to make that the reality, including taking money out of politics and rethinking the organization of government. You learn in political science that politics is a study of who gets what, when, and how. And if you broaden the conversation to include the what is air and land and water and biological diversity and stable climate and clean water and so forth, you begin to see that everything environmental really is political. And so the idea that environment is something over here as a subgroup or a special interest. No, nothing of the kind. It really is the basic interest that connects all humans on the planet because we're all dependent on air, water, biological diversity, and stable climates. So these are fundamental political issues.
Next question, which is about the students. So, what advice do you have for students that are interested in studying the environment and maybe pursuing a career in environmental issues?
Well, I hesitate to give advice. It might give advice to young people that are third or quarter my age. I think this is a dangerous thing. But there are several things. One piece of advice is to read broadly. And I think one of the things that my education at Westminster did, liberal education, was to encourage me to read everything I could find. And so behind me, part of the reason I have a picture behind me instead of my office is my office looks like kind of an explosion in a book warehouse. But I learned the habits of reading early on, both in my family and then as a student at Westminster. So read everything you can find, read broadly, read science and architecture and history, but just read broadly. The second thing is, I think whatever a student believes their particular gift to be, whether it might be in business or leadership or education or medicine or whatever it is, environment ought to be built into that. And I think the same is true of curriculum at a college or university. Instead of having environmental studies departments, we'll be successful when we no longer need environmental studies departments, but we've infused the entire curriculum with environmental thinking. And systems thinking just becomes what you learn in history and biology and business and economics and so forth. If we don't pigeonhole knowledge in the way we've done too much, I think. So I think that whatever a student's interest or whatever their particular gift is, they can make a contribution environmentally. The last thing I'd say, for whatever your career, it doesn't matter what the career is. Time is very short. Get a lot of things right. We have, I won't try to give an estimate. There are lots of estimates given, but at 410 to 415 parts per million carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, we don't have much time to take remedial action to stabilize the climate and then reduce the level of carbon dioxide and other heat trapping gases in the atmosphere. And that is that is an existential crisis. I mean, that is the ballgame. And so what we didn't know at Westminster when I was a student, beyond the threat of nuclear war, that which would destroy civilization, that there were other ways to do it. They were environmental or climate. You could do the same thing somewhat more slowly by destroying our common environment or heating the planet beyond some level. And the fact is, the climate change has emerged as, along with nuclear war, as the two major threats to our civilization. And so that's the sense of urgency that I think ought to be brought to bear on whatever career choices a student makes. But that's a choice that depends on, the choice of a career depends on what kind of life a student wants, what they think their particular gifts are, and how those intersect the world in which they live. Those are deeply personal decisions, but whatever, they all are fundamentally related to the environment we share.
Great suggestion about using your passion, but recognizing that everything that we do operates within Earth systems, and understanding how our impact is within that system is so critical. Any closing thoughts?
Well, let me just say it's a real privilege to see you and talk a little bit about Westminster. Brings back lots of memories, and coming close to Thanksgiving, I owe a lot to the town of New Wilmington and to the college and the friends and faculty and trustees and administrators that I've known there over the years. It's a great college, and I'm thankful for Westminster and all its men in the world. So, and thank you for the opportunity to meet in this format.